If you look, you die. If you smile, you die. If you do everything I tell you, you might not die, but you're probably gonna die. Let's talk about Birdbox. Birdbox is a movie that's been trending out on Netflix with Sandra Bullock and John Malkovich. It's pretty intense, kind of a dark movie. I don't know that I loved the movie. I enjoyed it. It was definitely entertaining. I'm glad I watched it. But there are some strong, dark tones throughout the whole movie, and they never let up, which I don't appreciate. I'm very much interested in there being a redemptive, hopeful message in a film, and there is one in this one. I just don't know that it compensates for the level of trauma we have to go through as an audience. So the premise of the movie is creatures, spirits, I don't know, something has invaded Earth, and if you look at them, you go insane, kill yourself immediately, and if you're already insane, you try to get everybody else to kill themselves. Pleasant. So Sandra Bullock's character is the lens through which we explore this world and start experiencing the different nuances of what's happening and what's not, and what's okay and what's not. And she has a son, and then some other survivor has a daughter, and she ends up having to take care of both of the kids. And she treats them like property. So it's boy and girl. They don't even have names. Like, she treats them like she's just like there to manage them, right? And her whole premise was, if she doesn't attach to them, if they don't like bond with her, then if she dies, they're gonna be okay and they'll live on past her, they'll survive. So her motive is good, right? She's doing them a favor. She's doing what she has to do in order for them to actually survive. She ends up also with this guy, and they're a couple, and he starts bonding with the kids, and she gets really upset. He starts telling them this story and like casting vision for the future, and there's hope, and he's like, oh, these beautiful things that they don't have and can't experience right now. And she catches him doing that in the garage, and she's like, what are you doing? She like commands the boy and the girl to go to bed, and then they have this fight, and she's like, I'm helping these kids. I'm the only one caring for them. And he's like, this is not living. She's like, I'm the only reason they're gonna live. And he's like, this is not living. People need hope. They need something to look forward to. Even if it's never gonna happen, they need to have hope in their life to be able to like believe that something better is available, right? Which is absolutely true. And it's this redemptive moment where finally there's like hope and someone breathing life into the situation, even though the hero, the protagonist, is so riddled with control and fear and this survivalist like despair. So that was a beautiful exchange. I really enjoyed it. I really appreciated that. And then also there's some fascinating elements to how people are affected by these creatures. If they're indoors and the doors are closed, apparently the creatures can't get in. So if you think about in the spirit realm, there's a metaphor here where if you're a house, the enemy actually can't access you unless you give it permission, unless there's an entry point, right? Like a door or a window. If you open it, then the enemy gets to come in and participate, and we're influenced by evil in that way. But if your windows are closed and you don't have any of these things sitting around available in your life, the enemy has a really difficult time getting any access to you in any area that we're talking about, and that's fact. So as we're able to wake up to and become more responsible and mature in the way that we manage ourselves, those doors end up being closed altogether, and we stop being harassed and attacked and afflicted and oppressed by evil because our house is secure. And then there's also this really cool scene in the end where the kids are in this forest and she has lost both of them, and they're both like wandering on their own. And it's weird because in the woods there is all this noise and kind of chaos, and there's wind blowing every time the creature comes, and so these leaves are blowing everywhere, and then there are these voices that are coming out. And the voices start to lure the kids to certain areas where, they potentially are gonna die because the voices are telling them, it's me, you're safe, take off your blindfold. And so Sandra Bullock's character is running, trying to find the kids. She's obviously also blind, right? Because if she opens her eyes, she'll kill herself. And she can hear that they're wandering away and just is desperate. She's like, oh my gosh, I'm not gonna get to them. And she also starts hearing the voices herself. Her lover comes back and starts trying to convince her that he's back and that she should take her thing off, or she's safe or whatever. And she realizes this is probably happening to other kids also. One of the things that I found to be super helpful in discerning in the spirit realm is when I start experiencing certain influences from a spirit in a space or in a situation, the way that it's influencing me, I'm aware that's probably how it's influencing people around me. It's grabbing onto details in my life that they might not relate to, but the way that it's grabbing at me or what it's trying to get at is gonna be basically the same with anybody else around me. So in the same way, when she realizes this is happening to them because it's happening to me, that's a very legitimate principle in the spirit. When you're picking up stuff that's happening to you, people around you are probably experiencing the same thing. So she starts yelling like, don't take my kids, like, no, I'm here. And she's like basically contending for and speaking against the other voices that are trying to draw them to their death, right? And evil is constantly trying to steal from us, to kill us, to destroy us. Another fascinating thing in the dynamics there is, as we are hearing and being influenced by the spirit realm, sometimes it actually is very difficult to separate a spiritual influence versus us, or the Lord even. It can feel really familiar and intimate and emotional, feeling a spiritual pull in a direction that feels right. And if we go off of what's only familiar and we don't actually discern the source of it and the nature of the spirit coming at us, we might actually end up making choices and allowing things in our lives that we have no business touching that will actually bring calamity or pain or harm or whatever. And so another cool thing to take away from this is we want to be aware of what we're choosing to allow it to influence us, no matter how it feels, no matter what it sounds like. We want to discern, is it true? Is it right? Is it good? And so that's where the moral compass comes into play and becomes really, really helpful. When your sensations and your intuition's kind of off because of maybe some compromise or some familiar thing in your life that you don't have a lot of clarity in, the enemy usually can get access to people in those places because we're disoriented and it feels right. It feels good. According to our conscience, everything's checking off. But underneath it all, in the real world, there's something else going on that if we are just going off of our own personal perception, we can get taken out with, right? Thankfully, she got to the kids in time. They didn't actually remove their thing, and I actually thought one of the kids was gonna die. I was like, oh gosh, they're gonna lose it. But she got there, which was awesome. But one of the most intense and interesting moments in this whole movie is they're on a boat. And they're on a boat throughout the whole film, right? It's like 2 days on the boat. And they're under a blanket as she's rowing. Or no, they're blindfolded, and then she takes off her blindfold under this blanket so they can look at each other. And they're gonna get to these rapids, and she's like, we're gonna need somebody to watch where we're going to tell me when to turn. I can't look, because if I see the thing and I die, then you guys are screwed, right? So one of you is gonna have to look. And we're like, what the? And these kids are like 5 years old, or 6 or 7 or 8, or I don't know. Oh God, they're like 5 years old. And so the boy volunteers, and the boy is her biological son. And she's like, no, you're not gonna do it. We're not deciding right now. And you're like, whoa, what? And then the girl's like, oh, and it's awkward because all of a sudden we realize like she doesn't want her real son to sacrifice himself. She kind of wants the other one to go, if they're gonna go, right? So the girl's like waiting and it's awkward and she's like, well, I can do it. And then she has this moment where she's waiting and it's painful as the audience. You're like, oh my gosh, what's happening? This is horrible. And then through her deliberation, she's like, no one's gonna look. And so then they just, you know, by blind faith, kind of relegate themselves to the rapids. But it was interesting to watch her struggle of like having to decide, like, do I want to guarantee what I want and protect what I want, or am I going to choose love in this place, right? And so she has a couple of moments throughout the story where she has to choose love, and there's so much harshness and coldness and intensity to Sandra's character, demonstrating a lot of control and domination and aggression to secure success and safety. But you have to realize, like, that whole mantra, that whole practice is coming from the other side already. There's already a decay and a compromise that in that state. And so when that guy told her this isn't living, he's absolutely right. Like, you guys, you can look at the parameters or the symptoms of things that come from your choices, but if the way you get to the success that you're guaranteeing in your life is actually motivated by the enemy, if you're getting there by control or domination or manipulation or intimidation or any of these nasty things, I'm not sure how successful you are no matter what the results are that you're producing. If that's the way you're coming by that stuff, it's horrible. And so we watch her throughout the whole movie operate this way and get to, you know, experience some redemption in waking up to some other options and realizing that there's better in the world. Gosh, you guys, this movie is intense. So if you watch it, if you haven't already, like, I mean, I think it's worth watching, but it is heavy and intense throughout. And there's some pretty ugly things that happen. But a lot of great stuff to experience, beautiful, interesting parallels to what's actually going on in the spirit world, and I'd say it's actually pretty on point. So you guys remember to comment on this video, like and subscribe to the channel, hit that bell button so you can get notified when we do this next, and remember, whenever you're watching a movie, you're never alone.